All right, guys, welcome back to another episode here at Men Explained. We're going to talk about something really interesting today, and it's going to be centered around tribe and really community for men. So Josh and I really feel that building tribe and having tribe is something that is under discussed, and it's not something that's talked about enough. So we're going to dive into that a little bit today, and hopefully get a little something out of it. So Josh, tell us your interpretation or what you think. What do you classify as tribe?
So for me, tribe, I would see it as a group of people. It doesn't have to be guys, but I think under this pretext, we would talk about kind of a guy's tribe or something of that sort. Common interests, common goals that come together on a fairly frequent basis and kind of hold each other accountable. It's a source of discussion, a source of healthy debate, argument. Again, I think accountability is the big one. A place where your ego can be checked without people getting butthurt about it. And I think it helps build a community that can do good. It's not, you think of tribe, you think of the old boys club, a bunch of dudes going sitting in the VFW, drinking beer, complaining about their wives instead of, maybe talking about how to solve the world's problems. I think people, when they hear that tribe, they think of that old boys club, which we know is not a good thing. Only bad stuff usually comes out of that. I mean, there's still a tribe aspect to it, but when it's, hey, what happens in these doors stays within these doors, it's kind of a weird thing, because I think in a tribe you can go home and talk to your wife or your girl about kind of what went on. Now, you may not share everything, right? Because if somebody says, hey, don't tell your wife about this problem I'm going through, there's going to be confidence there, and people are going to feel safe discussing those issues. So I think it's more than just a place, okay, let's go out and play golf and have a couple beers and then go home. It's much more than that. It's a deeper connection of, again, people with same interests, same goals.
Yeah, I mean, accountability for sure, but there's also like a looking out for each other.
For sure.
I mean, if we're talking, hunters from a hunter-gatherer sense, this is all you have. This is who you have. So you kind of look out after each other, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of that protection circle. Why is this such? Why do you think this is such a big thing for guys? There's a lot of different coping mechanisms, communities, groups, efforts to treat and to kind of get around the struggles that men have and that we deal with. Why is tribe such a big thing?
Well, I think it's because you don't have to do things alone. Yeah. I think one of the hard parts about life is sometimes as a man, you can feel pretty isolated. I think there's this notion of it's kind of complicated because there's really two camps of thought on this. It's like, if there is this kind of guy's tribe thing, then it's automatically toxic.
Yeah.
It's a toxic masculinity thing. But then it's also like, well, a man should be able to be independent and blah, blah, blah. And men do like their independence. They like their sovereignty, if you will. But doing that all by yourself, like going to the gym every day by yourself, going on a run by yourself, going to work and kind of having not so meaningful relationships at work, kind of doing stuff at home where you're just kind of serving a purpose. You're not really fulfilling a role. And a purpose, I mean, like, put the kids to bed, you do the dishes, and then you watch TV with your wife, and that's it, right? I think that creates a very isolated environment for a man when men are generally people who like to do things that are fun, adventurous, hunting, like to go out and hang out with their friends and do stuff like that. And some of that now is really being seen as like a toxic masculinity thing, which is a disgrace. But I think that's a big thing because guys want to get back to that, and they're almost shamed for having it. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where it's becoming this kind of this weird hot button topic that I never really thought it would be.
Yeah, there's I've always thought personally that when men deal with or tackle things shoulder to shoulder, rather than how we're sitting now, which is kind of maybe more that therapeutic sense.
Yeah.
Like you could look no further than like playing on the same sports team,
mm-hmm.
fighting for a championship, right? Fighting wars. You're on the same team. It's all look and defend, and that's how we navigate. That's how we sort of move through things and conquer.
Yeah.
Right. Not that it's not helpful, but it's not solved by always doing this.
Yeah.
Right. We almost do better when we're in battle together. Right. Would you agree or?
No, I agree. I mean, if you think about any aspect of life, from Navy fighter pilots, there's never just one of them, there's two of them.
Right. Yeah.
And families function better when there's two parents. I don't care what anybody says, there's data to back that up. Right. And when teams are functioning together as one, pulling towards the same goal, they're usually successful winning teams. Now, when you see people who are trying to do stuff on their own and they, I got this, it's, things tend to fall apart, right? The house of cards comes down, if you will. So that's, I mean, like, yeah, I mean, like everything is better when you have someone to walk shoulder and shoulder with you. I mean, even like people studying groups, they tend to do better. I mean, there's so many different things you can point to.
Why are we getting in isolation so easily? Why is that? Why is that just a real easy labyrinth to fall into? Because it's happened to me.
Yeah.
You kind of get, I'm mid-30s, party days are behind me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's really easy to fall into, right?
Yeah. I think it's a good question. I think it's sometimes it's a tough question to answer because it is a kind of a case by case basis. But I feel even as, we're in this kind of more touchy feely thing, it's still we're not received or heard very well. Like if you do have issues, people are like, well,
there's no tolerance.
Well, yeah.
Not,
it's also like,
not none, but there's just not enough.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I also think the thing is that like, oh, you're a man and you're going to complain about your problems. Well, What about mine? It's like, okay, well, like if you want me to talk, then listen, don't just tell me that. And so then when men hear that, they're like, well, I'm not going to talk about it with you then. Like, why would I bother to talk about it?
Right.
Or, they feel like they're going to be judged. They're going to be shamed. So they don't open up and discuss it with other people. And I think we got into a little bit of that on our kind of mental health episode that we did a few weeks back.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of the big thing, man, is there's guys don't really know the appropriate place to go,
Mm-hmm.
the right platform to discuss that. And we see online, I mean, like when you're online, I don't care what, you feel like you're in a group of people, but you are isolated and you're alone.
Yeah.
You can put whatever you want on YouTube and you record your video, but like, you're not doing that with anybody. You're doing that for an audience that you're not even in front of. Or you can tweet all you want or Facebook all you want. You're doing that by yourself. And so I think like we actually are fooled from the social media into thinking that we're part of a group or a tribe of people. It's like, man, that's just so flimsy and not real. And then when it does hit the fan and then you need that tribe, there's nobody there, man.
Yeah. So how should these things work? Well, first of all, there's not, we can safely say there's not enough of them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's undisputed, I feel like. How should they really operate when we're talking about what's really good from just a men's health or like a men's standpoint?
I know, that's a good question. I think I'd ask you that. Why don't you tell me what you think about that, man?
Well, again, as I mentioned, that's just how we contend with the issues the best. Now, I think, in my opinion, I think females are much better at sitting like this and going real deep, being very empathic, being very understanding to where other people are going. They're just more in touch with that because it's more feelings based, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where if men are fighting for something greater and bigger than themselves, and they're doing it with the people who have their back, who have protection, who they know are out for their best interest, for the greater good, again, bigger than himself.
Mm-hmm.
That for me personally, and I know that you would feel the same way, that gets you really fired up. That gets you passionate.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like you're getting out of your own shit, out of your own shoes, out of your own thing, and like you're fighting for something that you can't grasp today.
Yeah.
To me, that's where I feel like it's most powerful. And you mentioned it where it's hard. There's nowhere to run, right? There's nowhere to run and hide because you can't even do it from yourself when you're in a tribe. It's if there's a strong amount of accountability, which there should be, you're going to get called out on things. People are going to spot your blind spots, and it's for your greater good.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
That's just always been where I've come from. So, I have read a little bit. Jack Donovan. We talked about this a little bit before the episode, but have you heard of him? Have you?
No. I mean, I think we've briefly kind of talked about it before, but we haven't really gone in depth on that.
So you mentioned finding communities online, and the Manosphere would be one of those communities that you'd find, and it can be pretty dark.
Mm-hmm.
His area of expertise is more on. It's around masculinity, really, just specifically, but it's about tribe, almost exclusively. His big thing about, and he's written a couple of books that are really good, like The Barbarian's Way. I'll send them to you. But anyway, the whole point here is that he makes a distinction between being good at being a man and being a good man.
Mm.
That those are, though closely related, though they sound the same, that they are also very different in terms of how that is from day to day. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So just from that alone, by being the difference between being a good man and how to be a good man, hearing that, what would your response be? Like, how would you define either or the both of those?
Well, I think when people hear the word like being a good man versus like a good, like what I hear in my head is you hear this kind of definition of a man, right? And that's, you're good at being a man,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you go to work every day and you support your family and you feed them and you pay your bills, right? Like that's what the definition of a man kind of is, right? But then I think being a good man is more than that, right? It's taking the time to kind of put away your selfish desires, again, like you said, to do something for their greater good. And I think being a dad has opened my eyes to that. Because there's so many times where like, yeah, I would love to sleep in, but my son loves it when we hang out on the couch on like a Saturday morning and we just me and him hanging out, because he usually wakes up a little bit early before everybody. And I'll go out there with him and we'll hang out. I'm like, well, what do you want to do, man? He's like, well, I just want to kind of hang out and we'll watch the show together. And I'm like, sure, yeah, it's 6:30 on a Saturday. I would have loved to slept until 7:30 or 8. But, the hope for me is that my sacrifice of sleep is a lasting memory for him. And he'll carry that on as kind of a legacy.
Yeah.
That he'll understand, like, yeah, I remember my dad getting up with me and how important that was. I might suck in the moment, but like, to me, that's part of being a good man, right? Or, doing the things for my wife that she's incapable or doesn't want to do sometimes, like that she's not supposed to do. Like that's not, some things just aren't her role, and there's some things that aren't my role. And fulfilling my end of the role, being consistent and accepting her accountability, not resisting it, right? When she calls me out on something, like 99 times out of 100, she's probably right. And it's like, as a good man, you look at that and you say, okay, I'm going to put my ego to the side. She's telling me something. She's speaking to me, not just on the surface, but there's something deeper. And being in touch with that, again, I'm picking very specific parts of a married man or father, which a lot of people can't relate to. But I think you can relate that like in friendship with people too, right? Of like, hey man, like Aaron's a good man because if I call him, I can rely on him if he's not completely indisposed. Like I can rely on him because he's a man of his word. Every time I call him, he's reliable. Mm-hmm. He's honest. He's truthful. He's also compassionate in the times when I need him to be, right? And that's from a guy to a guy. I think that those are all kind of parts of being a good man, while being good at being a man is like, cool, you mow your lawn. Awesome.
So he defines it a little differently.
Interesting.
And you would have not known that. I mean, I don't
I
mean
think
to
that's
put you
okay
on the spot.
No, that's okay.
Because his being a good man is what you said from the start. How to be good at being a man, he defines as, I don't want to say that this is a general definition, mm-hmm. or it's what everybody should accept. But it breaks down into 4 different categories, which is mastering strength, courage, mastery in whatever your line of work is, mm-hmm. and honor.
Yeah.
So that's how he makes the distinction between how to be a good man and how to be good at being a man.
Yeah.
It did a lot for me. Yeah. My question about, so my brother, who's 4 years younger than me, mm-hmm. he just found out about him and his girlfriend are expecting. Mm. So we're super excited for him, and obviously, I've talked to him a lot about it. But one thing that he's told me is that like all of a sudden he's got like quite a bit more extra oomph. He's got a lot more energy.
Yeah.
And you kind of said that before about with your son. So my question for you is, that's kind of a primal urge that you're feeling there because again, it's not about you. You have young kids, you have little eyes looking at you like, hey dad, are you going to show up today?
Yeah.
So I'm not a dad I really yearn to be, if that's okay. It's what I really want, almost more than marriage, to be honest.
Yeah.
What's that been like for you to experience as a father?
I mean, it's I guess just from fatherhood standpoint, it's harder than you ever think it would be, but it's also more rewarding than you think it could be. It's a really interesting dynamic. And I think marriage is the same way too. I think just to side road on your point, I think a lot of guys want to be dads but don't want to be husbands. But if you're a good husband, it's way easier to be a good dad because if you if you do get married, that's going to be, your wife's going to be like, you know what, I didn't marry you to have kids. I married you because I love you and want to spend, when those kids are gone, we're going to be sitting around together on the deck having drinks when we're 67. Yep. Right. And so fostering a healthy, strong marriage relationship makes parenting and being a dad so much easier. Right. Yeah. Again, because there's a tribe aspect to that.
Sure. Yeah.
So that would be number one, I would say. A healthy, strong marriage makes parenting and being a dad way easier because you both understand each other. You know that you got somebody who's got your back.
Yep.
Right. Because you're not going to have all the answers all the time and you're going to struggle.
Yeah.
But having kids it's fun because you get to see little parts of you and new parts of this person that is you, but you have no idea where that comes from. But it's also really cool because then you're like, okay, awesome. I want to support this kid. Like you always hear the stories of the people who are like, hey, my grandpa was a doctor and my dad was a doctor, so I want to be a doctor. Like, what the hell are you thinking? Like, what if you hate being a doctor? Like, what if you want to be an actuary? What if you want to be like a guy who's like a plumber? What if that's where your joy is, right? And so for me, stepping back from what I do, like I don't care what my kids do as long as they pursue it, with passion and strength and all those things that you said about being a man, and they love it.
Yeah.
Right. So I think a big part of that is while I'm there to protect them, I have to take my hands off on them. I think Jocko Willink says one of the best things I've ever heard. He's like, you have to let your kids kind of brush up against the guardrails of failure.
Yeah.
Right. And I think when we dive into leadership, that's also what you have to do in leadership too, is kind of let people kind of get off the rails a little bit. And that's a really hard part about it because you don't want your kids to get hurt. You don't want to have to clean up the spilled milk, but like sometimes you got to let them.
I'm sure it's probably one of the hardest balances to strike.
Yeah.
Because it's like you love them, you care about them, you don't want to see them in pain, but you also can see forward.
Yep.
To see the aftermath of kind of protecting or padding against all of that over time.
Yeah. And you and I both know people, and we don't know these people exclusively, I'm saying, but like, somebody that was way too guarded and helicopter parents.
You can spot it miles
away. And you
away.
lose them when they're adults, you're like,
yep.
It's like, all right, man, well, this is how you get up every day and go to work and you show up on time and you do, it's interesting, right? So you have to, again, keep them from falling off the ledge, but let them kind of bump into stuff and scrape, and just the classic stuff. Let them get dirty, scrape their knees, yada, 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 all that stuff. So, but it does come with this overwhelming sense of responsibility because it's literally from one day to the next, it's a completely different ballgame, right? You're like, okay, I'm just, and it's funny because my daughter always calls me Josh. Hey, Josh. I'm like, my name's not Josh. She's like, yeah, it is. I'm like, no, my name is Dad.
Yeah.
She's like, no, but your name is Josh. I'm like, no, my name is Dad. You gave me the name Dad. And she looks at me, she's like, oh my goodness. I'm like, yes.
Oh, wow.
I wouldn't be a dad if you weren't here. Right. And so it kind of blows her little mind when she thinks of that. Also, it empowers her, makes her like, when my kids, like, you guys make me dad. I wasn't dad 2 seconds before you were born. The second you were born, now I'm dad. So, but it comes with this overwhelming sense of responsibility of like, I have to protect this child and I don't want them to be, I don't want them to get in like the wrong stuff, drugs, alcohol, yada, yada. So I need to watch the way that I talk and watch the way that I act. And okay, but we got those bills to pay, but then I got to send them to college. I don't want them to pay for so it's very easy to be overwhelmed by that. And I think it's important to say that, but then I think the aspect of what we're talking about of tribe, the village to raise a child is so important, right? Because none of us have all the answers, and nobody's kids are going to be the same, right? Every parent has different struggles with their different kids, and having a tribe and a community to rely on and lean on from that standpoint is super important. But then as a dad, having a bunch of other dudes who are dads is awesome. Like I know a bunch of other guys who are all dads, and you get together and you're kind of like, do I like open up about the struggles with my kids? And you say something like, yeah, bro, dude, I know my kid does the same thing, right?
Yes,
yeah. It's like, yeah, my kid pooped in the backyard also. And then we laugh and have a good time. Like, okay, good. My kid's not a dog.
It's just that once it's almost like I picture that as being like the sound of like a semi backing up and that brake goes out.
Yeah.
Because it's just all this like pent up shit that you're just not talking about.
Yeah.
And there's all this fear. Like, if I let this out, am I going to be judged? Like, should I even do it? Should I, does anybody else experience this? Am I going to throw a wild card out there? There's all this fear. And then you call it out, and it lets all the tension out.
Yeah, it does. Because then
Makes
you go,
it okay.
everybody's the same,
Yes.
right? Okay, everybody has the same problems. And that's like another tribe aspect, which
Yes.
people push back against so much, is like religion or spirituality. Like, if you have a group of people, like the Christian thing is confessing your sins, and nobody wants to do it, right? But then when you do, the guy across from me goes, yeah, dude, I had the same problem. The exact same problem, man. You're like, oh, okay, cool. And so it's like you get these men's groups or these women's groups, and you get these different things, and it's like people always kind of look at that as kind of this corny, cheesy thing. But you go and you stand in there, and like you're like, that dude went through that, and he's telling everybody about it. And then you see all these dudes nodding their head, and then they all come together and talk about it, and everybody's better for it, right? It's more than just their problems. It's a collective group of people trying to be better.
Yeah.
And they can do it together.
Yeah.
And it's a safe zone, right?
There's nowhere to hide.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no judgment either.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. You make it tolerant.
Yep.
Make it okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that right there, I think, is like one of the single biggest things that, like, it's like shining the light on the dark parts of what we think about, or should I say that? Shining light on that and giving exposure. Yeah, you could maybe make the argument that that's vulnerability, quote unquote, but honestly, it's leadership.
Mm-hmm.
If the guy over there across the room from me in this church basement or wherever it's a sport group went through that, and he's okay with these 30 people who he doesn't know at all completely know that, like, I'm not scared by that. I want to be more like that.
Yeah.
Like, how do I get to the other side, basically?
Yeah. Yeah, because I think it's important too, because if you can be candid and honest and like raw in those moments, like the people who are kind of going to look at you sideways are going to be like the weird ones, right? Yeah. They're going to be ones that everybody's like, no, this is like really good, because you don't know how many people this is actually helping, right? Because sometimes people don't want to talk about it. And then if you open up, because most of the time, man, unless it's like extenuating circumstances, most people have kind of gone through similar circumstances, maybe in a little different way. Some people haven't, but still that story, right, is important, because again, it builds cohesiveness within that tribe or that group, and it allows people to kind of rally around that person, and they can say, okay, man, we know that Ryan went through this, so like we're gonna make sure that Ryan's good. Like, let's say, I don't know, Ryan's wife died at Christmas, so what are we gonna do for Ryan around Christmas time? We're gonna make sure we're checking on him, we're gonna go over them, we're gonna invite him over to family stuff like that, right? Now, if you have a guy like that and they just isolate, I mean, you know what's going to happen, right? Yep. Most likely drugs, alcohol, or some other form of addiction, and the tribe can keep that in check and prevent that and give healthy outlet to it. And like, hey, man, come over and eat with our family. We'll cry with you, dude. Like, because we know you, and we're gonna go through that pain with you. And I don't think there's, again, because of the stigma of it out of the gate, people don't see it that way. They don't see that benefit. They just see a bunch of dudes sitting around talking. Or they're probably complaining and bitching about their wives. Yeah. Well, no, maybe he's talking about his wife. So how can he be a better husband? Because she's having some needs that are unmet, and he's talking to guys who he sees they have healthy relationships, and you're just catching it at the wrong time, right? And people just don't see the outcome of it, because they only see like the outside looking in, and it's unfortunate.
Take it at a surface level.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to make a statement that you mentioned the isolation for men being very easy to slip into. That's what we've been talking about. How common that is. I can do it on my own. I'm not going to reach out for help. I'm just going to do this on my own. Now, I would make the argument that from a tribal sense, when you're talking about a parental unit around a set like your kids, right? That it takes both. That the idea that came out of the 60s that women don't need men. Obviously, I think we're still experiencing the results of what that is.
Yeah.
that I could do it on my own. I don't need a man. So we have a lot of men that have grown up in single mother households.
Yep.
And they also not only, I'm not going to quote stats, but it wouldn't surprise me that there are stats on both sides of that and some of the things that you see in their ultimate downfall.
Yep.
So it's really unfortunate, but the out of isolation, even for the female side, I think probably not. It's not good.
No, it's not healthy if they have no outlet, right?
Yeah.
If they're always calling mom.
Yes.
And it's usually a pattern. There's a familiar legacy pattern there. I mean, you can look at the stats: higher dropout rates, higher drug use, higher violent crimes,
suicide,
marital abuse, suicide, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that people don't want to admit is that I think the biggest pandemic in our country is fatherlessness, right? Because if you're a young man and you grow up with a mom, like moms are great at being moms, right? Most of the time. There's obviously bad parents and bad mothers everywhere, but it's not a mother's job to be a father, right? How can a mom be a good dad?
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's an unfair thing to put on somebody, just like I can't be a good mom,
mm-hmm.
right? Like my wife handles certain situations with my son that like I'm either incapable of or just don't know how to do it. Like
mm-hmm.
I have a hard time being super compassionate, and my wife can provide that.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, this is now the time where I can take my hands off because it's probably the best thing to do in this moment, right?
Yeah.
But also, when a young man grows up and he's 17, how do I go on a date? Like, what do I do? How do I treat a woman? How do I treat my wife? I've never seen it or had it modeled to me. How do I be a dad, right? I mean, I grew up without a dad, and I struggle with all of those things. And I have no shame in saying it because it's the truth. And all that's a big root of the struggles that I have as a husband, as a father, and just life stuff in general. I always tell people, like, for me, I learned how to tie a tie on YouTube. I didn't have a dad to do it, right? And it's not a sob story, but it's like
no, but it's compelling.
Yeah, but it does tell you
because I'm just gonna say this: you arrive at this table free on your own accord of all of that shit.
Yeah.
Which is, that's a monumental effort on your part. And it gets well underreported, well underlooked, well undervalued.
Yeah.
So I'll take the opportunity to commend you for that. Because again, you arrive here having dealt with, contended with, and left all that shit behind you, and you're at peace with it.
Yeah, but I'll tell you right now,
that's massive.
But I'll tell you right now, I didn't do it on my own, right? That's the thing, right? But that goes back to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
My wife is awesome. She's been a great support system for all that. She's the one who encouraged me to go out and get an education. I didn't think I needed one, and I did it. And thankfully, I'm good at it. And her dad's been awesome. He's been a great support system for me. He's a dad I never had, right? But that I do have, thankfully. Really good friends who are really good support system. My brothers are awesome. My mom is great. Like, so it's like, again, it's while I did like the individual work that needed to be done, right? Like I went to class, I did all this stuff and yada, yada, yada. And I read the books, but it's like, I couldn't have kept that all together without the purpose that was greater than me.
Yep.
Because I mean, it's like, it's great to go to school and earn money and do stuff, but then what do you do with a pile of money if you had nobody to share it with? It's like I spend my money on raising my kids and doing all that stuff. And that's worth it because I wouldn't be able to do the things that we can do if I didn't go through that journey, but I would have never finished with those people, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does.
Yeah.
It's the communal effort takes a village.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, you can try to do it on your own, but it's gonna be hell on wheels most of the time.
Yeah.
Tough. Yeah.
Those, I mean, some of the most successful people, you see them on the news. They're on the Forbes top 50.
Yep. Loaded
entrepreneurs, biggest companies, apps you use. They got pockets and billions of cash, completely alone.
Yep. Miserable. Look at guys like Jeff Bezos.
Yes.
The richest guy in the world. Made his wife the richest woman in the world because he couldn't stop sending text messages to some girl and dick pics and stuff.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why he got divorced, man. Because he was there some other woman. It's like, dude, she's like, and that's the thing is like she was with him. I'm pretty sure, like with him from jump, right? But the good thing is there are certain people who are like they're a team.
Yes.
Like you see it. You see like a couple, like Tom Hanks and his wife, right? They're like a total team. I don't know. They could. Who knows? They could have some crazier.
Well, it's just you can see it.
Yeah.
You can see it. My parents they're. My dad is in his early 60s. My mom is about to be 60. And what I've noticed, it's hard to watch your parents age.
Yeah.
It's hard. It breaks my heart. but it's part of life. And one thing that I've noticed about their marriage, because again, in a very rare sense, they're still together. It's very uncommon.
Yeah.
What I've noticed is that there's a lot more gratitude and appreciation as they've gotten older for each other.
For sure.
You know, it's more, we're not going to sweat the small stuff. It's more, wow, I'm so happy that we stuck this out. And it's, you know, I kind of get choked up talking about it, to be honest, because it's, you can see it. There's a silver lining on it.
Yeah,
know?
because I think every guy has that. And that's the tough part about being a guy is like, and again, it's hard being a woman too. I don't want to always discount that. But like being a guy, when you meet a girl and you fall in love with her, you open up that you're totally vulnerable for the most part for a certain while. Because otherwise women like, I don't want someone closed up.
For sure.
You know, so it's like, so you, in those
Yeah.
intimate moments, right,
Yeah.
you are completely wide open.
Yeah.
And then a woman falls in love with that part. But then as we get married and things maybe change a little bit, sex is less often, you have kids, and then it's even less often. Then we start thinking about ourselves. And then it's like, guys get bitter. Again, they don't think about you have a family, right? It's not all about like what your needs or desires are. It's like you're raising a family, right? You're raising adults and you're doing all those different things. But what guys don't see is on the back end of that marathon is like what your parents have now. You got like a friend, you got a show watching buddy, you got a drinking buddy, you know, you have a partner, everything, right? All that stuff where it's like, this is also the other part where we were married for.
Yeah.
We weren't just married to be 25 to 30 before we had kids. And then, oh gosh, I got blindsided because I didn't know it was going to be life like this with kids. And then that's when people will get tripped up. We have friends who we've seen that happen to, and so on and so forth. And you just see it because the expectations are they're not healthy expectations. If you're married with kids and you expect to have sex with you every day, you're so delusional. I can't even begin to tell you.
Well, you know, yeah, you're absolutely right. And when you're caught up in your own need,
yep,
you have a need that's not being met. You have a need that's not being met.
Yeah,
and it involves nobody else. So because you don't involve anybody else, you're not open about it, and you're not transparent about it. You're not vulnerable in those moments.
Mm-hmm.
You're not letting other people call you out on your BS, and you're not letting the walls down. You have a need that's not being met, and you're the only one that suffers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can make other people suffer, but you're doing it because of your problem, right?
Right.
And so, but then at the end of the day, it compounds on you.
Yep.
In the wrong way.
Yeah.
But when you reverse that, and like when I really do a good job of focusing on my energy towards my wife and loving her, right? Not having expectations of something and just like unconditionally trying to meet her needs.
Yep.
And speaking love to her, right? That, again, that marriage tribe portion of it. I mean, she's all good. She does better in every aspect, right? Mm-hmm. Her energy's better, her mood's better. She's more patience with the kids, definitely more patience for me, right? And if we practice that, right, a thing that's great, because that's
the hard part.
That's their expectation in marriage, though, right?
Yeah.
Their expectation is not like, okay, cool, you went to work today, you did this, you did that, I made your dinner, and then we're gonna have sex, and then we're gonna go to bed and do it. That's not a healthy relationship at all, right? Yeah. There's no relationship there. That's just friends with benefits, roommates with benefits, whatever you want to call it, right? And so I think I think that the cool thing about what we're talking about is that we're not just talking about a tribe of guys, right? There's all these different tribes that you have. There's a tribe of people at work, right? If you get them pulling the same direction with a common goal, you can be super successful. Tribe marriage, tribe friends, tribe of something, like even guys who are like, I do jujitsu twice a week with the same 12 guys. We'll sometimes hang out every now and then, but like when we're there, we're all pulling towards the same goal, right? And it's just, there's all these different aspects of tribe that we can, and that may not be exactly what you're talking about, but I think
it is.
Yeah, but I think there's more opportunity than just the boys club, right?
Yes.
Like, hey, Aaron, and you and I, and then we're going to get like 3 more friends, and we're going to go to Billy's again tonight and sit at the bar and just have a few drinks and just talk about work. That's not a try. There's no, maybe bluff a little steam in a kind of unhealthy way, but there's no value. You get nothing really out of that. Right. I think. I mean, I don't know if you feel differently about that, but
no, you need some kind of real feedback, a barometer.
Yeah.
Something to reflect off of a little bit. Because if it's all your way and you get it how you want it and you do what you want and you don't answer to anybody and you have it exactly how you want, and if you're done with it and so on to the next, you have real problems.
Yeah. How fulfilled are those people?
Massively unfulfilled.
Yeah, I mean, it's because you see people like that, and the question I always want to ask them is like, what's enough? And like, not even from a money standpoint, like, and not even from a stuff standpoint, like, when do you feel like your emotional bucket is like happy full?
Fulfilled, yeah.
Yeah. Like, not everybody's as full 24/7, right? But like, when do you reach a peak where you go, man, this is great. Like, I'm here with like some people that I really love. We're just hanging, we're doing our thing. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Or are you just going, God, I should be doing something else, or whatever. Like, it's like, it's almost like torture to me.
Yeah.
Like, not be able to sit back and enjoy the things in your life when you're always just. So the Strengths Finders, have you ever done that before?
Sure.
So my number one strength is futuristic.
Oh,
right.
okay.
So I'm always thinking about like, how can we do the next thing? Right. Very, very.
We share that. What else? What are the other ones that you have?
I can't remember. I haven't done it for like 7 years.
It would not surprise you. Woo is one of mine.
Woo is not one of mine.
Okay.
But I think it is because I don't know. It feels
winning
like it
others
be.
over.
Yeah.
It's just yeah. Anyway, futuristic, communicative. I think was one of them.
Communication. Communication, empathy, woo.
Includer was another one.
Yeah.
I just like bringing them in, winning them over, making it be fun.
Yeah.
What were all the other ones that you had?
I can't remember.
Futuristic.
I honestly don't. But the futuristic aspect that I was kind of referring to is that, and I have to keep it in check.
Yeah.
Because I always tell my wife, like, if I don't keep that in check, like, I'm a midlife crisis waiting to happen. and she laughs about it, and it's funny, but like, it's true, right? Because if I'm always thinking about the next thing, I can never enjoy the thing that we just
present
did.
moment.
Yeah, so I have to slow that down and use it in a healthy manner, from a standpoint of like, okay, focus on the now, and then when we complete the now, let's talk about the future. If there's a map, that's great, but I can't think about point D when we're on A.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this is just going to get lost, and I'm never going to enjoy this time.
Yeah.
And I have to do that with my kids too, because it's like as they get older, things get a little bit easier in some aspects, harder in other aspects. But it's like my youngest is only going to be 3, and she's only going to want like daddy to do her bedtime for so much longer, even though it's hard sometimes. Like she's gonna be like 12 or 13, and I'm gonna be sitting on the couch like, hey, you want dad to come up and read you some stories? Like, no. Like just so that's the futuristic thing where I think it could crack back. But my point is like, again, that isolated person who's only kind of thinking about themselves and what they can get out of it. I think that's just what they suffer from, right? Okay, that was fun, but what can we do to take it to the next level? And they never get that fulfillment.
Yeah.
But when you're with a group of people, you can celebrate your success, others' success, and in the group as a whole.
Yeah, it's an absolute strength though, and I feel like from a men's perspective, being futuristic we're hardwired that way.
For sure, yeah, but it can be. I guess my point was that it can be dangerous.
Sure.
It can lead to
double-edged sword.
Yeah, big time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, we're goers, doers, achievers, and we have got to be.
Yep.
It's just the way we're always going to have to show restraint against that urge.
Yep.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, fellas, if you're struggling, go out and find some people. Go out and find a group of your own tribe, people that you like. Be mindful of who you welcome into your tribe. That's huge.
For sure. Yeah.
You can't just let anybody in. This isn't just, hey, come aboard. Be mindful of who you got. And if you don't find one, make your own. Start one. Be the leader of one.
Yeah, and I think a big part about that is, what do you like? Because I guarantee if you like something, there's other people who are going to like that same thing. So don't just be like, well, I don't have anything. Well, do you play an instrument? Go form a band.
Oh yeah.
Right? And go meet with other musicians. Cool. Would you like to cook? You can probably find about 10,000 other people who really like to cook. Right? I mean, it doesn't have to be just like some special club where you do just this very exclusive thing and we meet every Wednesday night, and blah, blah. It doesn't have to be that. Like, it can be anything that you like, from money, finances, right? Hobbies, jujitsu, guitar, all that stuff. There's a group for everybody.
Yep. And don't be afraid to plant your flag and say, I'm starting it. I'm doing it. This is what I like, and this is what I'm about. So come aboard.
I like it.
That's all we got. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care. Hey guys, thanks again for joining us on another episode here at Men Explain Podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also the bell icon as well, so you can be notified when we push out new videos. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead and drop them at hosts, that's plural, HOSTS, at menexplainpodcast.com, or just visit our website, menexplainpodcast.com. Thanks again.